The call came on a Thursday. Nina was in a meeting, half listening to a pitch about branding strategies when her phone vibrated twice. Unknown caller. She nearly let it go to voicemail until something made her pick up. "Miss Bennett?" The voice on the other end said. "This is Dr. Ortega, from Hopeview Memory Center." Hopeview. The name pulled like a hook through her chest. It was where her mother had been living the last 5 years. A place with soft blue walls and round-the-clock care. A place Nina hadn't visited in over 8 months. "I'm calling about your sister," the voice continued. Nina blinked. "My sister?" "Yes, Anna. She showed up here this morning." That didn't make sense. Anna hadn't spoken to their mother in 10 years. Hadn't been back in this state in just as long. Nina had once received a postcard from Oregon with no return address, just a doodle of a mountain and the words, "Still breathing." "She came to see your mom?" Nina asked. There was a pause. "She says she's here to help, and she brought something. A mirror, she says. From the old house." Nina felt her stomach drop. Room 217. The upstairs bedroom where they'd grown up, and where their mother had spent her final years before the illness stole her memory. The mirror had hung on that wall their entire childhood. Oval-shaped, rimmed in faded gold leaf. It was one of the last things their mother had packed before she moved to the care center. Now Anna had brought it back. And with it, apparently, everything Nina had tried to leave behind. Nina drove to Hopeview that same evening. She didn't call ahead. Didn't even change clothes. The blazer she wore to work felt stiff and misplaced in the home's quiet hallways, which smelled faintly of lavender and plastic. She hadn't been here since Christmas. That day, their mother had stared at her for a long time before saying, "You look like someone I used to love." Nina had smiled through it. She always did. But now Anna was here. She found her in the sunroom, sitting beside their mother, who was curled up under a soft yellow blanket, eyes closed but breathing steady. In front of them stood the mirror from room 217. Nina froze. It was exactly as she remembered. Oval, antique, the gold trim cracked in places. And yet something felt different. The glass seemed clearer, somehow less like a reflection and more like a doorway. Anna looked up. Her expression unreadable. "Nina," she said, like it hadn't been 10 years. "Anna." Their voices cracked the air between them like ice. Nina crossed her arms. "You brought that here?" She remembered it. Anna replied quietly. "The last time I called her, she asked if I still had it." "You haven't called her in years." "I know." There was a pause. The only sound was the distant hum of a machine down the hall. Nina looked at their mother, then back to Anna. "Why now?" Anna didn't answer right away. She turned to the mirror instead, running her fingers over the edge like it might offer an explanation Nina couldn't. "Because I finally dreamed of her," she whispered. "And in the dream, she was still waiting." Nina clenched her jaw. "There's a lot you missed." "I know," Anna said again. Nina looked at the mirror. The last time they were both in the same room with it, they'd been teenagers arguing about something petty, something now long forgotten. But Nina remembered how their mother had stood between them and said, "This mirror has seen all your faces, even the ones you don't show each other." And now, it was back. And maybe it still remembered. The storm rolled in faster than expected. By the time Nina walked back to the front desk to leave, rain hammered against the windows like it had something to prove. The roads out of Hopeview were narrow, winding and prone to flooding. "Ma'am," the nurse said gently, "we don't advise driving tonight. You're welcome to stay in the guest suite down the hall." Nina hesitated. Sleeping in a place like this was never part of the plan, especially not tonight. Not with Anna a few rooms away, and not with that mirror still sitting in the sunroom like it belonged here. But the nurse's eyes were kind, and honestly, the thought of skidding off a rain-slicked road didn't appeal. "Fine," Nina said. An hour later, she found herself sitting on a twin bed in a room that smelled like chamomile and disinfectant. She hadn't changed clothes, hadn't unpacked, hadn't even taken off her shoes. A soft knock. It was Anna. She stood in the doorway holding 2 mugs of tea. "I figured," she said. "This might be the only peace offering I've got." Nina said nothing, but didn't close the door. Anna stepped in, handed her one of the mugs, and sat down on the other bed. The silence between them felt heavy, but less sharp than earlier. They drank. And eventually, Anna said, "You ever think that mirror's weird?" Nina raised an eyebrow. "Weird how?" Anna shrugged. "I used to see things in it. Not like ghosts or anything, just moments. Things that hadn't happened yet. Or maybe things I forgot." Nina snorted. "You always had the imagination." Number, I mean it. Anna set down her mug and stared at the floor. The night before Mom got diagnosed, I saw her crying in the mirror. Not in real life, just in the glass. And the next morning, it was true. Nina didn't answer. But she remembered something too. A day when she was 13, staring into the mirror, and seeing herself holding her mother's handsome thing she wouldn't do again for a decade. They sat in silence. Then, a soft creak echoed from the hallway. Both turned toward the door. The lights dimmed briefly, flickered, and somewhere, not far off, a faint sound echoed through the lavender-painted halls. Tick, 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 like a clock that hadn't ticked in years, or a memory trying to find its way back. The ticking stopped as suddenly as it had started. Nina and Anna stared at each other in the dim light. Outside, the storm still roared, but inside, everything was still too still. Nina stood first. She didn't speak. She just opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, her footsteps quiet against the linoleum. Anna followed. The sunroom was bathed in soft emergency lighting. The mirror stood at the center of the room, casting no reflection except shadows. But when they stepped closer, something shifted. Not in the mirror itself, in them. Anna inhaled sharply. In the glass, the room looked the same. But their mother wasn't in her wheelchair. She was standing young, vibrant, laughing as she held hands with two small girls. Nina stepped closer. That's us. The girls were maybe 7 and 9. One wore a purple jumper, the other had pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. Their mother spun them around like they weighed nothing, Anna whispered. This was after Dad left. The summer we lived on boxed mac and cheese and you swore off peas forever. Nina couldn't speak. The memory in the mirror shimmered like a film reel caught on a loop, and then it was gone, replaced by nothing but their own pale, confused reflections. Anna reached out and touched the glass. It was cold. I'm not imagining this, right? She asked. Nina shook her head slowly. Number. The mirror had always been strange. Old, maybe even a little haunted. But this? This was something else. Do you think she sees them too? Anna asked, nodding toward the hallway toward their mother. I don't know, Nina said. But I think she remembers more than we think. Anna looked down. I came back too late. You came back, Nina replied. They sat down in front of the mirror like children at story time, unsure whether they were waiting for more memories or finally letting them in. For the first time in years, they didn't argue. They just sat side by side. Two daughters, two versions of the same girl, and the mirror, watching quietly, reflected not just who they were but who they could still become. The next morning, the storm was gone. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Hopeview like it had never rained at all. Birds chirped from the oaks outside, and staff bustled around as if the night before had been just another dream. But the mirror remained, unmoved, unchanged. Nina stood beside it, arms crossed. Anna watched her, unsure whether to speak. Do you remember where it used to hang? Nina asked finally. Anna nodded. Room 217. Top of the stairs. Right above Mom's dresser. Nina looked at her, jaw set. I want to take it back there. Anna blinked. Back to the house? It's still ours, technically. We never sold it after Mom moved here. It's been empty for years. So has this mirror. They didn't speak again until the mirror was wrapped in a blanket and secured in the back seat of Anna's rusted Jeep. Nina hadn't stepped foot in the old house in nearly 6 years, but her fingers found the spare key from memory hidden under the third stone on the front porch, just like always. The door creaked open. Dust floated in shafts of golden morning light. The air smelled like closed windows and time. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt slightly quieter. Nina stepped inside first. The hallway still had their childhood drawings taped to the inside of the closet. The stairs still creaked on the third step. And room 217 waited at the end of the hall like it knew they were coming. Anna carried the mirror with both hands. They placed it against the far wall, beneath the nail it had once hung from. It fit like it had never left. And then, silence. No visions. No whispers. Just their reflections, side by side. Until Nina noticed it. On the dresser below the Marora letter, unsealed. Addressed in their mother's shaky handwriting. The next morning, the storm was gone. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Hopeview like it had never rained at all. Birds chirped from the oaks outside, and staff bustled around as if the night before had been just another dream. But the mirror remained, unmoved, unchanged. Nina stood beside it, arms crossed. Anna watched her, unsure whether to speak. Do you remember where it used to hang? Nina asked finally. Anna nodded. Room 217. Top of the stairs, right above Mom's dresser. Nina looked at her, jaw set. I want to take it back there. Anna blinked. Back to the house? It's still ours. Technically. We never sold it after Mom moved here. It's been empty for years. So has this mirror. They didn't speak again until the mirror was wrapped in a blanket and secured in the back seat of Anna's rusted Jeep. Nina hadn't stepped foot in the old house in nearly 6 years, but her fingers found the spare key from memory hidden under the third stone on the front porch. Just like always. The door creaked open. Dust floated in shafts of golden morning light. The air smelled like closed windows and time. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt slightly quieter. Nina stepped inside first. The hallway still had their childhood drawings taped to the inside of the closet. The stairs still creaked on the third step. And room 217 waited at the end of the hall like it knew they were coming. Anna carried the mirror with both hands. They placed it against the far wall, beneath the nail it had once hung from. It fit like it had never left. And then, silence. No visions, no whispers, just their reflections, side by side. Until Nina noticed it. On the dresser below the Marora letter, unsealed. Addressed in their mother's shaky handwriting. To my daughters. The afternoon sun spilled into room 217, feathering against the old hardwood floors. Nina and Anna sat at the foot of the bed, the mirror between them, its glass now still and silent. Nina folded her legs beneath her. So, what now? Anna exhaled. House is ours. I don't want to sell it. Nina nodded slowly. Me neither. They exchanged a glance heavy with unspoken histories. The house had witnessed their childhood laughter, teenage fights, their mother's joy and her slow fading. Together, they stood and walked the hallways. Room 215 still held Anna's childhood trophies. Room 216, Nina's college acceptance letters pinned above the desk. Each room held a piece of them they had forgotten. In one corner, the flower-patterned wallpaper bubbled. In another, a squeaky floorboard just like it always had. At the front of the house, they stepped into the parlor. Dust motes glimmered in the high windows. A small fireplace sat, with a few yellowed photos propped above it wedding, birthdays, a family portrait now creased. Anna reached out to brush the picture's edge. We could restore this place, she said softly. Make it something. Nina turned to her. Like what? Anna paused, eyes bright. Self-care retreat, or a memory share space, where people like Mom who lose memories they come here. Bring an old object, sit in room 217. Remember, Nina searched her sister's face. A place to hold memories already fading. Anna nodded. People need that. They moved toward the front door. Would we live here? Nina asked. Anna glanced at the mirror in its unlit hallway. Part-time. Maybe both of us. Maybe Mom too, if she remembers. Nina smiled at a genuine flicker. For the first time, I want to come back. They walked out together, locking the door behind them. In the setting sun, their shadows stretched across the porch. And for the first time since they'd walked in, the house looked less like a ghost of the past. It looked like the beginning of something real. They started that night. Nina sat cross-legged on the living room floor with a spiral notebook in her lap. Anna brought 2 mugs of tea and placed them beside a pile of photos they'd found in a box labeled Keep or Cry Over. So, Anna said, tapping the notebook, what do we call this place? Nina glanced at the mirror propped against the wall. The Reflection House? Anna wrinkled her nose. Sounds like a therapy group that meets in a basement. They laughed. What about something simpler? Nina asked. Just room 217? Anna paused. Oof, that's haunting, mysterious, historic. And true, Nina said. That room started everything. Anna nodded. Room 217 it is. They scribbled ideas, room designs, possible services, memory art therapy, storytelling sessions, a shared kitchen for families visiting. They didn't know how to build a business, but they knew how to build meaning, and that felt like enough. The next morning they took a walk to the Hopeview Center. The nurse at the front desk recognized them and smiled. Back again? Nina leaned over the counter. We wanted to share an idea. They explained room 217, the mirror, the house, the vision. The nurse Marlene, her name tag read, listened quietly, then said, we've had families try to connect with patients through music, through photos, but no one ever thought of doing it like this. Making a space outside the clinic where memory can breathe. You think it's crazy? Anna asked. I think, Marlene said. I know 5 families who would drive there tomorrow. That night, back at the house, they cleaned room 217 top to bottom. They hung the mirror back in place, polished the floor, and dusted the shelves. Just as Nina lit a small candle on the dresser, there was a knock at the door. She opened it and froze. It was their mother. Held gently between 2 staff members from Hopeview, she insisted on seeing the house, one of them said. Said something about finding the room that still knows her. Anna rushed to meet her. Their mother looked up, her eyes glassy, but clearer than either of them expected. She touched Nina's face. You came home. Nina nodded, her throat tight. We both did. Anna took her other hand. And we brought the mirror. Their mother smiled faintly. Good. That mirror remembers everything. And as they walked her up the stairs, back into room 217, the house seemed to hum softly around them. Not haunted. Not forgotten. Alive. 2 weeks later, the house had changed. Gone were the dusty curtains and creaky silence. In their place, fresh paint, warm lighting, and the soft sound of conversation echoing through the old rooms. The front door now had a brass sign, Room 217, a space for memory. On the first open day, 5 families came. Some carried photo albums, others brought old trinket strings, journals, a favorite coffee mug. They weren't told what to expect. Just to enter, sit in room 217, and bring something that mattered. One woman saw a vision of her husband brushing her hair, just as he'd done before Alzheimer's took his voice. A young man heard his late father's laugh reflected through the ticking silence. No one left untouched. Nina kept a logbook at the entry, letting guests write whatever they wanted. Most scribbled fragments. Thank you. He remembered my name. We cried. Then we laughed. Then we cried again. The mirror knew. Anna handled the tour, guiding each guest gently, as if the memories were breakable. That afternoon, as the last visitor stepped out, Anna flipped the page on the sign-in sheet and stopped cold. One name stood out in blue ink. Elias Moore. Nina looked over her shoulder. Someone you know? Anna nodded slowly. I haven't seen him since I left Oregon. He was my fiancé, she whispered. Silence fell. Just then, the front bell rang again, and in the doorway stood a man with salt and pepper hair, a hesitant smile, and eyes that clearly hadn't forgotten her. Anna stood frozen at the threshold. Elias stepped inside slowly, hat in hand like a visitor to an old church. Hi, Anna, he said, voice low. I wasn't sure you'd be here. She blinked, then found words. You signed your name in the book. He gave a half smile. Didn't want to ghost twice. They stood in the entryway of room 217 like time had refused to move forward. You look, he started, then paused. Exactly like I remembered. Anna crossed her arms. You left without saying goodbye. I know. You proposed, then vanished. I know. She exhaled, voice quiet. Why are you here? Elias looked toward the mirror. I heard about this place through a nurse I know. She said it helps people remember. I wasn't sure I'd see anything, but when I walked in, I saw you, sitting on our porch, reading that battered novel you loved back when we still thought time was endless. Anna swallowed hard. You left, she repeated. I was scared, he said, of failing, of hurting you, of becoming my father. She didn't answer. I thought maybe if I disappeared early enough it would hurt less than failing later. Anna stared at the mirror. It showed them now older, heavier with regret but also something more tender. Her hand was slightly extended in the reflection, even though it wasn't in real life. The mirror knew. I didn't stop loving you, he said. And then quietly, did you stop loving me? Anna didn't reply. Not yet. She stepped toward the mirror and looked into it again. This time, it didn't show the porch. Or the past. It showed her, holding Elias's hand. Older, laughing. Not broken, just changed. She turned to him. Do you still have the ring? He pulled it from his coat pocket. You kept it? She asked. Every day. She took a deep breath. I'm not ready. He nodded. I'm not asking. I just wanted you to know I came back. This time, not to leave. Anna looked back at the mirror, then to him. Then stay, for coffee, for the guests, for today. Elias smiled. That's all I hoped for. They called it Memory Night. A quiet event. No speeches. No ceremonies. Just a gathering of families who had brought their most fragile stories, their heaviest photos, their most haunted objects, placed them gently in front of the mirror in room 217. Nina lit candles around the room. Anna made tea for every guest. Elias helped carry chairs from the attic and set them in a circle. Soft music played from an old record player they'd found in the basement, one that still skipped on Nina's favorite track just like it used to when they were teenagers. Around them, people came in slowly. A man in his 70s brought a typewriter. A woman held a music box that hadn't played since her sister died. A child carried a shoebox full of marbles her grandfather once collected. They came for different reasons, but they all came with the same question: can a place remember what we can't? Nina stood beside the mirror, a notebook in her hand. She wasn't taking names, just listening. When it was her mother's turn, Anna guided her in. She moved slowly now. Her eyes wandered often. Sometimes she called Anna by Nina's name. Sometimes she just smiled and said, "That's a nice mirror," but tonight, something flickered. As soon as she sat in front of it, her posture shifted. Not dramatically, just gently, like a bird remembering how to perch. Nina knelt beside her. "Do you remember this room, Mom?" Their mother didn't answer. She touched the edge of the mirror, fingers trembling, and then whispered, "This is where I used to braid your hair." Nina's breath caught. "Yes," she said. "Every Sunday. You'd sing while you did it." Her mother smiled faintly. "You hated when I went off-key." The room went still. For the first time in years, she looked at Nina no through her, not past her, at her. "My girl," she said softly. "You stayed." Nina nodded, eyes full. "So did you." The mirror reflected the moment. Two women. One memory, still intact. The last candle flickered low. Guests had trickled out one by one, some with tearful hugs, others in quiet reflection. The shoebox of marbles, the music box, the typewriter all had been returned to their owners, somehow heavier with meaning and lighter in weight. Only the sisters remained. Anna stood by the doorway of room 217, arms folded, watching their mother sleep peacefully in a chair by the window. "She called me by my name," she whispered. "It's been years." Nina nodded. The mirror didn't fix her, but maybe it gave her back a piece she'd buried. Anna walked over, gazing into the glass. It no longer shimmered with memory or offered glimpses of the past. It just reflected them tired, grateful, home. "I used to think healing meant going back," Anna said. "But maybe it's just about stopping long enough to notice what stayed." Nina smiled. "We stayed." They turned and looked at the mirror together. In the reflection, their mother slept. A warm light pooled around her, and just beyond her, chair-faint but unmistakable, the shadow of a man. Their father. He didn't speak, didn't move, but he looked at his daughters with something like peace. Then slowly, he faded. Nina blinked. "Did you?" Anna nodded. "Yeah." They didn't cry. They didn't need to. That night, they wrote one final message in the guest book. "We thought we came here to remember her. But really, she helped us remember each other." Nina and Anna. The next morning, sunlight filled room 217 like gold dust. The house no longer felt like something inherited. It felt like something chosen. And the mirror? It remained exactly where it belonged. Quiet, waiting, ready. Not magic, not haunted. Just honest, like memory.